All right, thank you very much for joining us this midday. As you mentioned, this is Lauren Lapazina. I'm Keely Fulton.
And I'm Roxanne Stein, live outside the Palm Beach County Courthouse in downtown West Palm Beach, where they are still trying to seat a jury in the trial of John Goodman. We'll have live team coverage coming up in just seconds.
Certainly a very high-profile case for our area. This case also against the local millionaire accused of causing a deadly accident while driving drunk 2 years ago is getting a lot of national attention as well.
Now, once a jury is seated, we can look forward to dramatic proceedings as the state tries to prove Goodman is responsible for killing 23-year-old Scott Wilson. Roxanne, you have been leading our team coverage and analysis, so let's go ahead and get started this midday with you.
Well, jury selection, the questioning continues at noontime. They're still upstairs on the 11th floor questioning prospective jurors. It started out Tuesday and Wednesday with 109 men and women. That's been whittled down to about a third of that. 38 men and women were called back to court at 8:30 this morning. One of them was immediately dismissed, and then the questioning began, specific questioning. Let's begin our team coverage now with Alex Sands, who has more on court proceedings this morning. Very detailed questioning, wasn't it, Alex?
And that is key, how detailed this process is. Really trying to get a better sense of who these potential jurors are, as you know, Roxanne. And among the questions we're hearing are some of the basics. Who are they? What do they do for a living? How old they are? Do they have children? And of course, the biggest question of all, do they have bias, and can they give John Goodman a fair trial? That, again, part of what they're trying to get down to the bottom of today. But among those questions we keep hearing of are different subject matters upstairs. Have they had experiences with alcoholism? Will John Goodman's wealth play a factor into their thinking process heading into the next several weeks? And beyond that, also questions of crime. Have they been crime victims, or have they themselves committed crimes? Of course, all of this in very sharp contrast to the past couple of days, where the media coverage and pretrial publicity has been part of the major focus of this jury selection process.
Been a lot of publicity, and so we have to ask everybody, what they've seen and heard, and I think you can understand why we're doing that.
I believe, yes, that his car ended up in a canal. I thought it was a shame. Accidents happen. They do. But, you feel bad for the family of the child that passed away.
It sounded like he was at fault, and I guess I believe that.
This is, as we've seen, a very slow-moving process, down to some 37 potential jurors from 109 yesterday. Of course, the background's very wide and varied. We have a nurse, we have a construction worker, a substitute teacher, all people who could eventually, these next several days, hear this evidence and pass judgment on John Goodman.
And all of them have a background that they're talking about, and they've been talking about all morning long. Something you mentioned, media coverage. That seems to be a sticking point with Roy Black and the rest of the defense team, doesn't it?
It's almost as if it's a cloud hanging over the entire day. Even this morning at 8:30, the first question was about what defense attorneys called a circus-like atmosphere outside the courthouse because of the media coverage, what jurors may be exposed to heading into trial every day. The judge says he thinks they can possibly get this wrapped up by today, find those 6 impartial voices. Again, this could be a pretty long day today as this continues here. It's
pretty intense questioning, but the state is still doing the questioning. They still have the entire defense questioning to come, don't they?
And that may take even longer. Right now, that is the idea that the state could have possibly wrapped things up by the lunch hour. They're still going this hour, so it could possibly run into Tuesday. We'll see how things play out today.
All right, Alex, we know you're following it all afternoon. Let's get more insight into what the state and the defense are looking for as they pick their jurors by bringing in our legal analyst and criminal defense attorney Michelle Suskauer. We've been listening to the intense questioning this morning of those prospective jurors by the prosecution. What type of juror is the prosecution looking for? And then let's go right into what type of witness, or juror rather, the defense is looking for.
Well, sure. And both have competing interests, and they're each going to have strikes. But first of all, I think for the state, they really want someone who's had a good experience with law enforcement. Everyone has had some experience with law enforcement, some good, some bad. They definitely are looking for folks who really have positive experiences with law enforcement. They're looking for folks who are conservative in their lifestyle, conservative not people who are flamboyant, maybe blue collar, hardworking, people who could, relate to the victims in this case. They're looking for non-drinkers, people who are not heavy drinkers, who are not partiers, who don't go out. And again, that's going to be different for the defense side. And finally, I think they're going to be looking for mothers, people who can relate to the fact that there was a young man that was lost, maybe people with college-age kids.
And as you mentioned, it's almost the opposite for the defense.
Right. At the opposite, they're looking for folks who are open-minded, who are not judgmental. They're looking for folks who are drinkers, I'm not saying partiers, but people who don't completely abstain from alcohol, people who've had experiences, not people who are tainted in any way. They're not looking for any nurses or engineers based on some of the witnesses that are going to be coming forward and some of the testimony that we're going to hear. And I think that they're probably going to lean heavily, if they can, toward men who can relate to the defendant in this case, who's a man, John Goodman.
Michelle, the state is still interviewing the prospective jurors at this point. The defense then has to start. Do you think this will happen by the end of today?
I think the judge is going to push it. I don't know how much longer the state has in their questioning, and that the judge is not going to let them go on ad nauseum, but because he really does, given the fact that there's no court tomorrow, want to have this jury seated. But I think that it's a good possibility we're going to be able to get a jury seated today.
And that is one item of business, is that there is no court tomorrow and there's no court Monday, so they will seat the jury. As the judge mentioned yesterday, Judge Colbath said he wants to seat that jury today by the end of business. Now, that business day may extend a little bit longer than normal just to get that jury seated. Coming up at 12:30, we want to talk a little bit more about the styles of questioning by the state and by the defense. That's coming up in the next hour of News Channel 5 at noon. For all of our live team coverage down here at the West Palm Beach Courthouse, or the Palm Beach County Courthouse in West Palm Beach, let's turn it back to the anchor desk.
All right, Roxanne, thank you very much. And you can follow all the developments of the Goodman trial from a special section of WPTV.com or with the WPTV app. You can find it in the center of our homepage. You can also follow along on Twitter using the hashtag Goodman Trial.